Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here on February the 4th of 2019. It's Nick and Chris here to talk some manga again. All right, man, how's it going?
It's going well. That's right. I'm Nick.
Yes, and I'm Chris, and I'm the one who does all of the important stuff, but everyone thinks is the less intelligent of us. So,
Yes. And I'm Nick. I'm the one who has all the smart opinions and is really the only glue that keeps things together.
well, it's a good thing to know that we're both so selfish and only think of ourselves then. Yeah, all right.
Also, my mustache is stupid. Boom. Roast. Last second.
This sincere loving time has been interrupted and brought back to the normal thing that you come to Weekly Manga Recap for. Don't like each other. Hate each other.
It's rough.
Demand pizza from each other.
I do one day. It's rough because I get complimented for what I do on Dice Funk a lot, and I'm physically unable to take compliments professionally or graciously. I have to immediately be like, no, I'm not good. Everyone else is the good one. So it's like me constantly. I'm like 1,000 palm like monk statue. I have to deflect all of the compliments away before they get to me.
With like the senju.
Yeah, the senju thing. They start slapping them away. No, it's all Austin. He's a good DM and slapping it.
I thought for a second that you were like referencing like the monkeys instead of the monks for some reason. So it was like, see no compliments, hear no compliments, speak no compliments.
And then when you said monkeys, I thought you meant the band The Monkeys. So it's just I don't know. No, I was like, I don't feel like a Peter Weller, but maybe
that band that was completely unable to take any praise because they were guilty over them.
Hey, my mom loved the shit out of the Monkeys when I was a kid, which maybe explains why I don't like the Beatles so much, because that was never a thing in my household.
That makes sense, you know. All right, man. We've got a lot of action-packed chapters to cover in this week. So yes. I think that we're gonna have to get into it and call the action, like proper commentators would.
Okay, I want to be Nigel McGuinness.
Okay, go right ahead. Go ahead and talk about joint manipulation and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Oi, there's me, Nigel McGuinness. I think he does NXT, but he's probably somewhere else now.
He does still do NXT.
There we go.
Calls it with Mauro Ranallo and Percy Watson.
Good for him for still being around.
He just like wasn't with them, and then all of a sudden he just showed back up and was like, I'm calling NXT now. I was like, all right, good for you.
Bravo, man. It's always great to see like those minor guys who eventually go on to hold like long stated, like Christopher Nowinski is now like one of the most foremost like knowledgeable people on like sports concussions. You're like, good for you.
People are alive. Yeah, people are alive now still because of him, because he told them that it's like, no, your brain is turning to mush the more you do this without things changing. So, good job. Anyway, let's talk about another case where a person hurts themselves a lot in order to do what they love. With Deku in My Hero Academia. That's what he do. Well, not so much anymore. But he, last chapter, had decided to use his new quirk, Black Tendril, to try and fight Shinso in this team battle, and we pick up where that left off, where he would snag some debris that Shinso had pulled down with his capture scarf. In final face-off, Midoriya versus Shinso is chapter number 215 of the series. And basically, immediately, Deku's new quirk fades away. And we learn via basically like that video game narration where, you know, like when you're playing a game, you try and do a thing and you're like, I can't do that yet. Like they just like, that's basically what he does.
I don't think I should go down that pathway yet.
If I go down this pathway, I won't be able to get back up. So I should make sure that I'm finished with my business here before doing this.
An NPC I still need to talk to progress the story.
I can't leave yet until I've rescued all the hostages. Why am I trying to do this? It's not. I guess it's because there's way more interesting stuff outside of this mission to do. But whatever.
They put such interesting mountains out there, so you kind of want to
Mhm.
climb all of them.
So he thinks to himself that he's not going to be able to use his new quirks until he actually fully masters One for All. Uh, so because not just because these are new quirks, but because these are powered up quirks. So he's not going to be able to control the power output until he fully masters it with One for All. So that's why he's not really able to use it. So the black tendril appears just long enough for him to like grab the barrels out of the air, and then they immediately fade away, and that's it. Uh, so Shinzo decides, well, fuck, this is all screwed up now, and he decides that he needs to retreat and regather himself, and he really feels pretty frustrated with himself because the entire plan that he had hatched with Monoma was to get him into a position where they could basically take out Deku, who they thought was the most dangerous out of everyone in this group, and he's kind of screwed that up now. He has not taken advantage of the situation that Monoma created. Speaking of, Uraraka has fully dealt with the guy. Um, he's still trying to fight back, but she's got him tied up and is dragging him behind her with her zero gravity quirk, while he occasionally uses one of the borrowed quirks to chuck debris at her, and she's just like, no, martial arts, deflects it out of the way, and she's perfectly fine. And he also is trying to provoke her into responding to him so that he can use Shinso's quirk to brainwash her, and she just makes sure to keep a grip on herself and not respond verbally no matter what he says. And she actually has a little bit of a conversation with him, a one-sided one, where she just kind of responds vaguely with some gestures and such. And Monoma's trying to trick her and deceive her at various points. For example, by suggesting that maybe he's bluffing about how what limits his quirk has, and maybe he's gotten stronger and he can extend the time limit, or he can borrow more quirks at once, and so on. But she's just, shoving him into the cell while he's talking. So as she's getting ready to shove him in, finally he just says, I can actually do some really interesting stuff with my quirk, and maybe I'm not. And in fact, just because the effects of the quirk of the borrowing fade away doesn't mean that all the effects of the quirk are gone. There's something that basically I've set up, and he says, "Be careful of the supporting role's dying breath." And he basically very heavily implies that he's done something that will hurt Deku, and so Uraraka rushes off, wondering what the hell he's got planned. And we catch up with Shinso and Deku just as the plan that Monoma had launched goes into effect, which was during that exchange where he ran up to Deku and socked him across the jaw and borrowed his quirk. He also applied one of the other quirks that he had applied, the Twin Impact. So now as Deku is chasing after Shinso, he basically gets sucker punched across the face as the Twin Impact activates, and this gives Shinso an opening to potentially use. And so, good stuff there. We catch up with the other group in the 3-on-2 battle as Mineta finally gets clobbered, and he's basically out of the fight now, which leaves Ashido to take on all three of the others together. And so some of the people on the sidelines in Class 1B are like, oh my god, we're going to win this one, actually, because Shinso's pulling away from Deku, and now this team fight is going our way. But basically a whole bunch of stuff happens at once. Shinso tries to launch his capture scarf at Deku. Deku launches through the air and grabs it and just pulls Shinso in and takes him down. And Uraraka shows up at the team fight. She chops one student across the back of the neck. She gets another one stuck on some of the stickies that Mineta has left behind, and Ashido takes out the last one with an uppercut. And all of a sudden, all of the members of Class 1B seem to be down and accounted for, as Uraraka had decided that instead of just going after Deku to help him, that she would go and help the rest of her team instead, where they would probably need her help more. So there we go. But it seems like the fight's over.
Yeah, it would definitely seem so. And Uraraka got her moment to look cool. I do think it's very amusing that the hat girl, when she shows up, she's like Reiko, and then it just looks like Uraraka goes up and just slightly pushes her into the capture orbs, like the stick orbs. And she's like, it's not like a big action panel with like boosh and like pushes her into the wall, and then she gets stuck. It's almost like she was right next to it. She's like, just
I hope
like
that nobody comes
her.
up next to me and pushes my arm the 6 inches into these sticky balls. Oh no, someone did.
Oh, who could have seen this coming?
But yeah, I think Uraraka was like the MVP of this battle. She helped out Deku when he had his freak out. She assisted him in going after Shinso. She captured Monoma almost completely on her own, and then she ended up helping the rest of her team to disable everyone else. So good for her. She looked awesome in this.
Yeah, I think she looked very good, and I'm glad this fight is over and this arc was hopefully over.
The entire team battles are over, Chris. It's been like 3 months. We're done.
I still think this is well done, but I'm looking forward to getting back to hopefully some more story.
I feel like this whole thing, like certain fights in it, could have probably been condensed a little bit more if we had more fights go the way of like the Bakugo fight, where it was just like, and it's over.
Yeah, 2 chapters.
But some of the stuff we got out of it was very good. Some character development moments were better done than others. And also some of the members of Class 1B that were built up through this I care about more than others. So, but at least I feel like it started off strong and ended strong at least. So, all right. So that's it from my hero.
Let's go to talk about the second best cooking chapter this week.
Basically, yeah. So, Food Wars 297, The Missing Half of the Moon. So, remember how Takumi was in trouble when Megumi came to help to get Soma? Okay. So, the rules for Takumi's match this time are that they can have people help them. They can, and he's going up against the bartender guy, Don Kama.
How very appropriate for this one to be one that allows assistance when it's the 2 people who apparently specialize in using tag team cooking. Like it's very, very convenient that that's the one contest thus far that has seemed to be like, yeah, use friends for this.
Right.
Friends who aren't even involved in the blue.
Pretty much. So Don Kama is like, I work for Asahi Saiba, and I want you to put our knives on the line. And Takumi's like, why? Why should I do that? Because now I want it! And that's it.
He's like, I'll take your great talent of Italian cooking, I think is your thing, but like I need your goober brother to do it sometimes. I don't know.
Well, how great would that be if like Asahi gets the Mezumuna and then he tries to use it and he's like, oh shit, I need like a dumpy younger brother who only ever shows up to assist me in order to make full use of this.
Just throws it away.
Useless on its own. Like, I mean, this whole betting knives thing, like when Mimasaka did this, he like provoked people in order to put them on the line. These guys are just like, put your best tool on the line against me. Why? Because I want it!
It's like,
okay.
I guess that's the rules to this. I thought the Blue was an organization, like it was managed by the WGO, and they would have kind of like referees and officials that would declare whether or not certain rules would come into effect or not. Whatever. I guess it's fucking Noir just runs the whole thing now.
Like when the last time that Takumi put his Mezulo on the line and lost it was because Mimasaka was just like, your brother is a piece of shit garbage and you're awful and your entire method of cooking is awful and so he was like, oh fuck you then, fine, let's do this. And this guy's like, I want your knife. Come on. So Don Kama is being assisted by a bunch of transvestites. And of course they, all are coming in. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna help," and some of the people are like, "Whoa, what's with all the transvestites?" And Don Kama's like, "Oh, I'm sorry that you're perturbed by this, Takumi. Don't worry about it. They're all a bunch of sweethearts." And Takumi's like, "Actually, we have a few as regulars at my family's restaurant, so okay, it's fine." I mean, I've never seen so many of them. It's a little weird, but
I just assumed when they said we could bring assistant, it didn't mean 13 fucking people, but whatever. If I had known, I would have called my entire fucking class and had us put together like a fucking buffet or some shit.
Yeah, for my assistant, I call the entire Totsuki Academy. Fuck you.
I call Joichiro, fucking whatever his name is.
I call Asahi Saiba.
Make a dish, bitch.
So they're going to, all these transvestites are going to help out Don Kama, and Takumi's like, I only need one assistant, and we get this flashback, which when this started going, I was like, oh, he is so going to lose now. They're doing this whole thing. Basically, just like, oh, Takumi and Isami are so good together. And Isami has improved so much as a chef. The Aldini brothers are an unstoppable tag team. They're invincible. And there's this whole thing with, like, Erina commenting to some random secret security guy that's like, Takumi is successfully defending his seat on the council. This skill, of course, is quite obvious, but the one to watch is his brother Isami. Of the two students closest to making it on the council, effectively, the Institute's number 11 and 12 chefs. One is Hisako, and the other is widely considered to be Isami. He has improved his skill as an individual chef that much.
Eat my entire dick. I don't believe that for a fucking second. This dude has never been important.
You remember Chris, when we were back when we read iShow 21? And it was like, all right, that Christmas bow was kind of disappointing, but it's time for the world stage. This is surely going to be good. Oh, look, he's going to have his final showdown, his rematch with Panther, and we're going to see how they measure up against each other. This World Cup is going to be so good. And then we were just disappointed perpetually the entire way through. I'm really starting to get vibes from that for this entire arc of Food Wars.
So, like, but Nick, the German guy can also run a 4.2, and Isami is the 12th best chef in Totsuki Institute. He's essentially, unofficially, a member of the council. I was somewhat bemused by this, because I started to sit here and I was like, I thought it was supposed to be kind of a big deal that Takumi, Megumi, and Soma were the only members of the council to show up at this contest, as far as we know. I mean, who the fuck knows? I guess anyone could just show up. It's fucking WWE hardcore rules, I guess. Anyone could just come into a match and get involved.
Obviously, Takumi texted his brother the GPS coordinates so that he could just drive up and join him.
Yeah. The premise, this is very stupid. But it was very specific. Those are the three characters, because they kind of built that these three characters are, I guess, our main trio, so to speak.
Right.
So it's interesting that Takumi has this sort of moment here, and it's still about him and his brother, which has been his storyline throughout the entire series. Has just been like, oh, I lost my knife to my brother, and then he, has that match against Azon, and he's like, it's revenge for that, because you were the one who hired me, Misaka.
Right.
And everything. So you feel as though, because they've spent time trying to characterize Takumi as an individual without just being like, and he has a brother. So you'd think this would be like the spot for an individual Takumi chapter, which I guess we're technically gonna get, because the other fucking brother is a goober who got like captured anyway. But it is weird that it's like we're still going to this well of like Takumi and his brother, when it's like, I don't know of anybody who even likes Takumi's brother. Like, it's just such a weird thing to still keep going back to. Like, there's a chance for him to have an independent contest of that.
Right.
We're not doing
it. Nope. So Takumi gets worried because his brother doesn't immediately respond, which is very out of habit for him. And he's like, what's going on? And he looks over at Don Kama, who's like, and he's like, what happened? And sure enough, we cut away, and some more of the transvestites kidnapped Isami and have him tied up somewhere. I don't know where. And Don Kama's like, all right, everyone, let's do a weird coordinated dance thing where we shake stuff up in martini shakers. And
this is all crazy cooking style.
So they do that. And he's like, oh, your partner hasn't showed up. I guess I'm going to win by default. Oh, well, I guess that, I'm going to get your Mezzaluna, and let's lose. And then Soma shows up, and he's gonna help out Takumi, and Takumi's like, "Oh, fine." And meanwhile, Isami is talking to his kidnappers and is like, "There's no one who can bring out the best in my brother like I can, but the second best is already there right on sight." Okay.
I don't really know how I even want this match to end, because on one hand, I'm like, this is always like, this is another constant reminder that Takumi is not nearly as interested in a character as like the writer wants to think he is. But I don't want to see any more of the fucking bartender chef, because this premise is so stupid. Like, he's like a dude who goes into, he's like, every match I'm in needs to be a team match.
I'm completely helpless without 20 people to assist me.
I need 20 people shaking bartender things.
What if you have to prepare something that, requires you to, like, I don't know, fucking chop up an entire side of beef, and then I put it in my cocktail shaker?
It's like when I dip it in some brandy, and then I put it in my cocktail shaker.
You're just, like, stuffing an entire cow and...
It's like I do a couple of flips of the old bottle, and bada boom, bada bing, here's a filet mignon.
Anyway, while I'm doing this, tell me about your deep personal problem so that I can give you the drink that will solve it.
If you were that, it would be a much better story.
All right. Let's move on to Eden Zero, why don't we?
All right, let's move on. Eden Zero, Chapter 29, Iron Hill, with Moskov right on the front, Nick, or Moskoy. I forget which his actual name is and what he just says over and over again.
It's all the androids together.
Yeah, all the little robots. So we start the chapter, like most fairy tale chapters arcs start, with a bunch of women bathing. It's worth noting that this is the pool where Rebecca got her ether gear powers start to manifest from.
Right.
Homura's just like, this is really hard to like sit in here all the time because it's so hot. How do you manage it? And then she kind of notices that Rebecca has ether gear, and she's like, well, what does yours do? She's like, I don't have anything. You get to choose. She's like, yeah. Like, if you haven't learned it, you get to pick what your ether gear is, which is kind of like a small little but rather significant detail. And Rebecca says,
it's like starting up a video game character, Chris. You get to choose the path that you set out on.
Mm-hmm. Do you wish to take the shield but forsake the wand? As everyone should have in Kingdom Hearts. Let's be honest. Magic is terrible. But no, she's like, hey, I'd like something that made my guns aim better, because I just would never want to miss anything. And she's like, what do you mean guns? And she shows her guns, and Homura is so nervous. She stands up and is like, I would like to challenge you to a duel. Rebecca's like, we can't do that. We're both naked.
We're naked.
And we'd look ridiculous, which is exactly how these kind of conversations would naturally go. Then we cut over. Sister and Witch are having their conversation about like, oh yeah, what have we been doing? You know, mentioning that Elsie has actually been the real one, or yeah, Elsie was the one really defending
Not
the
Ursa.
Eden Zero. Yeah. And just talk about all these things like, oh, I can't wait to see Valkyrie and Herbert again. Oh, hey, this little robot, that's like the next generation, right? And he looked at Pino and they're like, yeah, this little droid is one who will someday be the light of Edens. Like, whatever. And then Moscow is like,
this whole thing actually lured me into a false sense of hope, because like, oh wow, female characters are conversing, and sure, the first one was about them, having their tits out and stuff, but they're talking about like, oh yeah, this is the power you could have in the future, and then these two are talking about their shared personal history and their hope for the future and stuff. And then the next thing happens.
Then the entire rest of the chapter kind of
basically,
yeah. So yeah, Moscow's like, can I do anything? What am I of Edens? And Sister's like, you're the pig of Edens. So I'm like,
and he's like, oh, thank you.
I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, does the robot not know he's being insulted? Cheeky gives Rebecca back her B cube. She puts it on. They talk a little bit about the actual Professor Wise. But then eventually she's just like, oh wait, where's Homura? And Wise is like, oh yeah, I had a certain condition for letting her join us on the Eden Zero. And we, for some reason, cut to a conversation that is not what he's talking about. Like we hard cut to her having a massage, I guess. I don't know if this is what Rebecca was thinking, but she's there in her own like weird fantasy. So I don't know what this is supposed to be, but
This is a
apparently
flashback.
then I don't know why it cuts to Rebecca here, because Weiss is like, all had certain conditions for letting her go, and someone's like, well, what conditions?
He should have. I mean, he should have brought that up after she goes through all of this.
Yeah.
Like,
Anyway,
he should have brought it up, afterwards. After Rebecca says like she's going to be out of commission for a little while.
Yeah.
And then he explains himself. That's how the conversation should have unfolded. But anyway,
it's a weird way. Anyway, it's just a like massage, torture, and pain thing, and they're like, she's really hurt. But then Weiss mentions he's like, the Eden Zero has all the rooms that make clothes for us, right? Or more condition is that she has to wear the clothes that I picked it for her. And he's got a really sleazy face while he does it. And he's like, I think she'd look great in a bunny girl costume. And Cheeky's like, I want to wear a bunny girl costume. And that's basically it.
And then the next page begins with Rebecca getting a notification, which is on her B cube, which is on her collar, which is just above her cleavage. So you go from them talking about that to all of a sudden just Rebecca's boobs.
We
just
hard
right
cut
there.
over to Rebecca's cleavage.
Yeah.
And it's a shot framed so fantastically that I feel as though if there's ever someone who's just like, I don't know if heroes really always going for as much sexual content as you think, I'm like, there is no reason to frame that shot any other way than that unless that is what you want us to fucking stare at, because it is gratuitously detailed. Anyway, they pick up. It's Clarice from whatever
the guild
they're part of, Shooting Star Guild or some bullshit like that.
Who cares?
She basically just tells us like, hey, don't come back to Blue Gardens for a while. Oh, actually, she first mentions, hey, you know how the Guildmaster was also kidnapped when you were like sent to go meet the Guildmaster and we never saw them? Well, it turns out the reason we didn't see the Guildmaster anywhere on Guilds is because they escaped off panel and just weren't involved. So I guess that's the plot line.
That's why you didn't see them this entire time. It wasn't a plot hole or anything. It was just I changed my mind.
Yeah. But then she says, don't come back to Blue Garden because you're such a crazy huge celebrity. Because all the beekeepers are talking about you, that it's just a little bit of a Rebecca craze right now. Happy like looks. He's like, wow, the numbers are great. But they're all giving us bad ratings. So basically she's like, yeah, thanks for this opportunity. I have to make a really good video. So Shiki's like, how about one of me dancing in a bunny girl suit? She's like, I love it. And Wise is like, I figure that's why I think I figured out why you get such low ratings. And I'm like, he's right, because that's a very low level concept idea. When you have this high boon, you need to start capitalizing it. So you need to become like, I don't know, like a documentary worker who like travels and discovers all the seedy things across the world.
I mean, if you've got a thing on your ship that can just make any costume, you could do a lot of crazy stuff with that, honestly.
Yeah. So they fly past a thing called Iron Hill, and it's apparently a memorial to the 12 people who guarded the cosmos during quote unquote the Dark Ages. And we see it's basically like a giant kind of like what do you call them? Like the pointed kind of geometry shapes. But they have like
stars.
They have like, I think there's a more specialized name than that. But anyway, it's one of those 12 points, and there's a big statue at the end of each point. And these are apparently quote unquote the Heavenly Knights of Dancing Sakura, the Guardians of Blue Garden. And Shiki's like, wow, that's super cool. But then Sister's like,
Shiki's like, wow, that's a long title.
He's like, what, they need 5 names? I don't think so. But then Sister's like, hey, wait, I can't believe it. I just had a few lead, but I never guessed my first guess would pay off. And we zoom in and we see that one of the statues has a little person sitting at the very top of the statue. And Sister says, are you reading my mind, hermit? So they found the next one.
A dodecagram.
Yes.
A star polygon with 12 vertices.
Okay. So that's the chapter.
So they're catching up with the old members of this crew very quickly, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess we don't really have time for that. We're just like, hey, let's just jump into this. Grab each one. Come on, keep going, keep going. People are gonna get bored. I mean, who knows what'll happen? Maybe Hermit meets them, but Hermit doesn't want to hang out with them, and we get something else. I mean, this doesn't seem super conducive to a location for an entire arc.
Yeah, considering that they're just, it's just a giant rock. Doesn't seem to have an atmosphere. It does make you kind of wonder, like, how the fuck did they make that?
But at the same time, this might not even be an arc. Maybe they just pick fucking Hermit up or something like that. Who knows?
I do hope it's not like a whole thing, because yeah, it does seem like just a stop along the way kind of location. All right, let's get into our new series then. Let's talk a bit about Hell Warden Higuma, Chapter 6. It's the one where I have to learn a character's name, Chris. It turns out that I probably don't have a choice anymore. Chapter 6, The Worth of a Life. We get a flashback to basically expound on the little glimpse that we got of the past in the last chapter with the with Kabata spending time with his grandfather. And he basically just explained, as the fight from the previous chapter is finishing up and Higuma is dispatching the demon, that when his grandfather died, it was because a fugitive spirit stole his life force, and he witnessed it. And the day after the funeral, the priest and his son, Higuma, came and asked me questions and figured it out. And when he banished the spirit. And so Ayaha says, "Oh, so you're saying he wasn't able to save your grandfather?" He's like, "No. See, when Hell Wardens reclaim life force, they can return it to victims who are still alive, but there is no way to return it to someone who's already dead. When a human dies, they can't come back. Fugitive spirits violate the natural order." That's what Higuma told him in the past, and he says, and that's what Enma says anyway. He's like, well, who the hell is Enma? So, Kabata explains a little bit about, the last time that basically they saw his grandfather. He says that the first snow came the day before he died, and we promised each other that if the snow got deep enough, we'd build a huge fort together. What I'm trying to say is the worth of a life is hard to put into words, at least without thinking about it for a while. But if those people had died here today, there would be that many more unfulfilled promises left behind. My grandpa is gone, but Higuma understands this. And I guess I figured, why not help him out in my spare time? And that's why I got my sigil and help him out. So I do like that. It's like your own life isn't just yours to live, basically. It also has meaning to the people around you. So Higuma has finished his duty, and he remembers, of course, the conversation with the fugitive spirit. Was like, "Oh, you don't realize what you're doing," and he's like, "No, I do. I do understand the consequences of what I'm doing." And I like this too, because it's like he understands the value of a life, and also the fact that he has to take it in order to prevent them from doing so. It seems like it's something that's going to be core to his character and why he's doing this. So Ayaha basically kind of officially becomes a Bunreisha now. She's going to help out how she can. And then Kabata is like, "All right, anyway, I'll see you later." And he takes off the Bunreisha robe, and he's just a kid wearing a school uniform. And he's like, "All right, I'll see you in class tomorrow, Higuma."
Catch you later, peace.
You guys are in class together? Yeah, I've been stuck with him this entire time. But from there, we cut very suddenly to Higuma sparring with a guy who basically looks like he is also a demonic spirit named Abo, apparently. And he's getting his ass kicked by this guy. Says that, you're fragile, you're weak, and also says, like, you were a good-for-nothing brat. You have no idea what to do. And he says, if you disagree with my methods, feel free to skip our sessions like you always used to. Remain weak and die. And Higuma is basically, kind of just like complaining in a very, kind of bratty sort of way. So he's keeping up it despite this. But this does seem to imply that there was something that happened in Higuma's past that made him take things more seriously. And at that moment, a couple of hands appear and grab Higuma by the ankles and drag him off. And he is brought before the great King Enma, this childish-looking kind of pseudo-demonic figure with their ankles chained, and says, "Let's talk about work." And that's where the chapter ends.
All right.
Yeah. Not a whole lot to really talk about. I do like the little bits that we get, but I'm kind of waiting for something big to happen.
Yeah.
Some sort of like big character reveal. So
Yeah, I think there's a moment coming up, hopefully, that's going to like kind of kick this. I guess we had kind of the first miniature arc, but I'm hoping the next one kind of really gives it like a firm kind of hook going forward.
it definitely still feels like something's being held back, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Lation then, Nick. Process 7.
Speaking of shoes dropping, like, holy shit.
So
what the fuck happened in like the last 2 chapters with this series? Just like, by the way.
So last time, Neo and the group, they got Anzai. They caught him. They revealed their whole plan. They kind of showed that Motoko was controlling him the whole time, and he had a mental breakdown on top of the roof. So it was like, all right.
Oh, I guess the police got him.
Yeah.
Nope.
Nope. He fucking booked it, apparently. They know, like, okay, so everything's good. We reunited Saki with her family, and it's pretty good. But Anzai, who is under suspicion, is apparently still at large. So,
Yeah.
interested about that. There's a whole news report talking about how, all this happened, how a machine could control how we think, because everything about Makoto became public matter at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about how, AI is simply a tool, nothing more, nothing less, but how different machines could help people. And they specifically showed the quote unquote think. I can't remember the name of the actual product that this is based off of.
Mm-hmm.
But there was actually a product that was like a triangle that you would put on your forehead that was supposed to like reduce your stress and shit like that. And then they found it was like giving people migraines and some shit like that. So I did find it amusing that was referenced here.
See, it's a good thing. Ow!
But maybe later versions will be good.
I mean, I do like that they kind of bring up this whole point, though, of like, why the fuck was the university just letting Anzai make an AI? It was like, well, because there are possible benefits to doing it. Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, we're at a time where you could basically be a mad scientist when it comes to AI, and people will be like, I don't know, maybe it's the next fucking Alexa.
Maybe Dr. Wily is onto something here.
Different flavor-themed robots. Fireman, Cutman. All of these sound very dangerous. Explosion Man. I'm not sure how he's going to help. Acid Man. But yeah, let's make them.
Shouldn't there be like a help man or something?
Yeah, like a Doctor Man or like Teach Man. And he's like, no, but I have Bonesaw Man. I don't know if that's going to help. So yeah, Neo and Daigo have a conversation. Have a whole conversation about like, yeah, Anzai's still out there, and Neo's like, yeah, don't worry about it. He's a wanted criminal. He's afraid of getting caught, so we'll lay low. And then, he doesn't have anything to his benefit. He doesn't have his job. He can't go anywhere. His AI's gone, so he's pretty much screwed.
But he does bring up, because Daigo's like, I thought you said that Notoko was able to predict every one of his moves. And Neo says, well, she could, which means that most likely someone else is involved, and she couldn't predict that.
Yes. So we cut over to the school then, and we see that Yuko's doing her dance team practice, and Saki's watching along, clapping along. And Neo comes up. He's like, it's really strange, just watching all the time. And he brings up a quote. He says, the dancers are fools and the watchers are fools. Both are fools, so why not dance? He says, that's a saying. Ever heard of it? She's like, that's a saying. And he's eating a hot dog. And he's like, well, the way I'm standing, everyone's an idiot no matter what they're doing. So.
And she's like, your hoodie's stupid. Fuck off. Like, it seriously occurred to me while I was reading this chapter, like, he normally looks like okay, just like an eccentric weirdo when he's wearing it, and he's oh whatever, he's a super hacker, he can wear what he wants. But then when he's like out and about eating hot dogs and having conversations on a bench, he looks like a real idiot.
It's very confusing. Like the enormous hood, but he's still wearing what looks like a school uniform, basically.
Right, yeah.
So, I don't know. But yeah, she's like, hey, thanks for saving me. I don't know what came over me, and I almost made a lot of people sad. And he asks, like, hey, so why was it you ran away from home? Everyone else who was killed by the lemming system died in their own home. And she's like, well, I got the message that said, like, if you don't do this, there's no telling what's going to happen to your friends or family. So I got scared and ran away. And I thought if I was alone, then it'd be protecting the people that I care about. So running away was the part of the lemming's instructions. And Neo just had laughs. He's like, man, that guy could control people if his life depended on it. Ha 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 ha. Foreshadowing. And he basically says, like, yeah, it's actually really good you ran away because that's how we started tracking you down and finding out something was wrong. So, you really kind of helped things out there. It was all thanks to you. You were the first person to actually put a wrench in his plans.
Yeah. If not for your unique qualities, then we would not have been able to do this. Yeah. So,
and then he kind of gives her some encouragement. He's like saying, like, hey, I'm just saying that, if you ever want to die, buy me a hot dog and come over to my place. And he's like, you mean you'd save me again? He's like, yeah, I mean, I think of humans as a resource, but I won't squander them like the lemming. And this is where we have to get the reminder that Neo's not super like a cool person. Like he has like a weird, angry or like villainous way of discussing things.
Right.
He's like, humans are resources, but I appreciate these resources. And your parents were really happy to have you back. So like if I kidnapped you, then I'd get money for it. And that's how it's like. It moves her to tears over how moving this speech is because she's reminded about how many people care about her. But it is funny that he's just like, if I kidnapped you, they'd do whatever I wanted.
It's good to have the option to be awful.
Yeah, so we close off that arc with a little moment as like Yuko chastises him for being a bad guy and all that. And then we cut over to Anzai. Yeah, he did escape, Nick. And he's like, man, you saved me. I gotta say, you're a lot younger than I thought you'd be. Gewalden. And we see a guy wearing what could best be described as that giant blue fuzzy hat I used to have in the picture. And like high heel high heel shoes. And I don't know. He looks like he's dressed for a Cure concert or something. It's a very unique look. And the guy's clacking his feet over and over again. And Anzai's like, why did you do that? Why are you going through all this? And he's like, oh, because I consider you the same kind of beast that I am. And beast is emphasized here. He's like, yeah, only people who are bound by the rules set by people. It's beasts who stray from such principles. And in order for a beast to survive, must constantly feed on people. The strong, the clever, and the beautiful creatures that I love. And I saw a beast inside of you. He's like...
It became impossible to ignore at the end of the chapter, okay? We'll get to that.
I can see it. And he's just like... everything was working great, but then that stupid girl, she did something unexpected. If it weren't for that, and he's like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna be on the run? How am I gonna be able to keep this up? I'm so screwed. And Gavaldon. I want to call him Galvadon, which is only because
the beast.
I only vaguely know of Transformers, which I think he's a character. Is the Galvadon something from that?
Galvatron is what Megatron becomes.
Well, then I'm just mixing up all sorts of things. Gevi, as I'm calling him now, he says, Lemming, don't worry. I promise I won't let the police catch you. He's like,
that's really? That's very strangely specific wording.
I promise you, the police will never catch you, and you will live the rest of your life not worrying about the police catching you. These are very specific promises. I'm just saying, I can promise for the remainder of your life.
The furthest thing from your mind.
So we're introduced to two policemen. One is a woman in like a business suit with like a like the reverse rogue where she has like white hair but one black stripe, and then one guy who's like old Columbo who's just like, yeah, we're gonna have to.
I'm gonna tilt my fedora on my head. Yeah.
Hata, let's go down there and take a look there. See. Like it's almost like they took two police archetypes and just like made them partners, which I fucking love. And they're like, oh, come down here. And they go down there, and they see a sigil of a skull surrounded in a ring, all made of presumably blood. And they're like, yeah, we have to, I guess, check to see if it's Anzai's. And the female detective says...
just like Brock Lesnar's skull symbol thing.
It does. So. And the female detective says, what's this symbol? It looks like a beast. And then we cut over to a factory that melts down metals, and we're introduced to a new character, Gideon, and they've just thrown Anzai's body into the fire to dispose of every evidence that he was alive.
The last remnants of him are his fucking Crocs.
His stupid ass shoes and his cell phone. Or no, his car keys. That's the other thing that's in there.
Right.
So yeah, he basically says like, yep, once something goes in there, it's going to be melted away to the bone. Everything's gone. So all physical evidence of the body vanishes. And Gevy's like, good, Lemming, now the police will never find you.
Remember what I told you before?
I told you, the police will never, ever find you. And he's saying, like,
you meant to, like, they're tossing him into this. He's just like, I don't get it.
What do you mean?
Oh, and he's like, wow, it's really impressive that you're still alive after we took out all the blood in your body in order to paint that symbol very carefully in the wall.
So Gideon says, like, hey, are you I like how he says, are you sure about this? As though it's like, we can still fish the burnt dead corpse out of the fire, maybe.
It's not too late to take this back.
We can still salvage this. But he's saying, weren't you going to make Lemming our fifth member? Gevy's like, nah, what I want is a beast. I thought he could be that, and I considered helping him with his AI, but it turns out he was nothing but a rodent. His fangs were too short to call him a beast. But apparently there was a very...
This guy was like a Mason Ryan at best. He was no Brock Lesnar.
No. He was maybe like...
Maybe Heidenreich.
Maybe like an Ezekiel Jackson, like a little bit above, but he's not a Lashley even. And the Lashley's not that great. So let's be real. All these obscure wrestling references here. So yeah, basically he's like, yeah, so there was a skilled hacker who got in everything. So I think I might play with him instead. Gideon's like, aren't you, like, you're going to make him our member? Isn't he a bit eccentric? He's like, so breaking him in will be all the more fun. So we have our villain group to look at, and this is suddenly feels like it's becoming a lot more like Majin Tante Nogami Neru.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised by the introduction to this because it suddenly feels, like it's a lot more of a shonen series now that we've got this, like, the evil organization that are trying to go accomplish question marks. But I do like that they've all got these crazy weird designs and that he just got rid of the previous one by throwing him in a fucking furnace.
Like, there was a moment where I was like, how did Anzai escape? Like, even if Neo's like, I'm too much of a fucking, like, wuss to actually, like, tackle this guy, I was like, Daigo was there. Daigo could have just arrested him. Like, how did he escape? And it's like, oh, who gives a fuck? Because he was immediately tossed into a fire and eliminated.
Oh, man.
I definitely enjoy that this series is pushing more into realms of, like, I don't want to call it philosophy, but these characters have their mindset of the world, and that seems to be an interesting way to push this going forward.
These weird world views to have them conflict with each other.
And it helps, too, because it makes Neo's weird tendency to be kind of, like, shitty in everything he says make more sense as to why he's the protagonist of a shonen series when you're like, oh,
right,
because we're going to start getting contrasted to the people who are like him but worse, kind of.
Basically, yes.
So really good chapter, liked it a lot.
All right, let's move on then.
All right, let's talk about We Never Learn. Question 97: the silence of absence apathy becomes of the genius's X.
It's a very weird title.
Oh, aptly becomes genius's X, sorry. So Kirisu starts the chapter off coming in saying, "I object." with no lead up, she has opened the door. I object. And she explains that
It's a very serious scene, Chris, which is why she's wearing her skirt, which only partially goes up her butthole.
yeah, it's a very modest attire for this universe. And she's basically like, I heard about what happened with Yuego. What's the meaning of this? The principal's, we see basically the scene. And the principal's like, yeah, you've done great work. I mean, the recommendation is pretty much yours. And Yuega's like, yeah, I know. And this is a very stupid thing to do. But I'm sure it's what I want. So the principal's like, all right, well, in that case, Yuega, your VIP recommendation is withdrawn. And we see that that's how his friend overheard this because he was just listening to the door.
I've got something I'm gonna eat. Oh, hey, I think I'll listen at the store.
So Kirisu in the present is like, why did you accept this? He's worked so hard. He's done so much for this. And Principal's like,
oh, you seem to care about him.
I believe I recall a certain somebody who wasn't very favorable to his assignment as the girl's tutor. And she's like, oh, yeah, he's good. And it's like his ability to do all this is phenomenal. So he deserves the recommendation for that. And the principal kind of like starts waxing philosophic in a way. He starts feeling kind of poetic. He's like, what a mysterious boy. That's high praise coming from the Ice Queen.
People call me that? Fuck you.
He's like, you're the fucking principal. I don't think you're allowed to use the nicknames that kids call us. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I can't refuse him. And it's probably the first time he sincerely asked for something for himself. So we cut over to the girls who are doing their study session without Yuega. And everybody's kind of reacted to the fact that they know this dude, except Ogata, who already kind of knew it because Yuega asked her, like, hey, can I do some part-time work at your restaurant? So everyone's like, what's going on? I don't understand. And we get the explanation that, yeah, Yuega's doing this because he wants to pursue education. And the schools that really are good for it don't accept the VIP recommendation. So he's going to just go for a regular, a university. He's just going to pay for it and do it the other way. So he's going to put some hard work in. And everyone's kind of being like, oh, why don't you go to a regular university or, major over there, take one of the schools that do the VIP recommendation, even if they don't have a good program. And he's like, I thought about that, but I'm not the most talented student. So if I'm going to do this, I've got to really go for it. I want to be on par with all of you. I'm done admiring you from just afar. Very sweet little moment there. We get a little flashback to him as a kid with his dad, and his dad saying, be a man who understands those who struggle. And he says, just once I want to be, where is it? I just want to do what someone once did for me. I want to be the kind of teacher who could stand alongside his students. So very little sweet moment there. The girls are just like, Yuega's late. They're like, well, I don't know. He doesn't have to be our tutor anymore. So he might never show up again. And they're like, yeah, but it's good news. Let's support him. So let's get back to work, everybody.
There's a moment where Ogata has a very kid who doesn't understand death moment. It's like, they're like, yeah, he turned down the VIP recommendation, so he doesn't have to tutor us anymore. He's like, oh, well, I was going to return this thing to him today. I guess I'll give it to him tomorrow. No, he's never coming back, Ogata.
Sometimes I forget just how how much she doesn't understand social interaction at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a moment where Fumito's just like, how do I solve this equation? And she just turns like, Narayuki, is this how oh, right. And
it's very embarrassed.
Yeah, there's a whole moment there, and she's just like, I guess I just missed Yuega a little bit. How about you? And Haruka's just like, no, I'm totally fine. As her spirit says as it's leaving her deeply depressed body. There are some amazing reactions in this chapter. It's then followed by everyone being like, this is too tough. And then Haruka's like, isn't that right, Yuega? And he's drawn her in him in her notebook, and he's like, that's right, Haruka. Let's go. Everyone's like, no, you don't go down this deep end.
Also, you're a really good artist, apparently.
And her eyes are so terrified, the pupils have gotten so tiny. And she's, isn't that right, Yuega? And then they notice, like, oh, it's his towel. Oh, it smells like it. I love it. And Kufumino's like, yo, you gotta be a little subtle about this shit. Fucking Ogata's right there. But Ogata's so fucking laser focused on studying, she doesn't notice. So Fumina's like, give me that towel. And she drops it on the floor. And then she like goes down to pick it up. And then she starts sniffing it from underneath the table as well.
I think that we need to like rank how creepy each of these girls are being when they do this. Like, I think that Uruka is so not in her right mind that she's the least creepy, and she doesn't even realize what she's doing.
Yeah.
Ogata, like, knows what she's doing, but also doesn't realize the implications of it, so I think that's second. And then there's just Fumino, who's just being a little weird pervert in this one. Just I'm gonna hide under the table. I sniff the towel. It smells like Eureka.
Oh, I want it. So yeah, we get a little speech from Ogata. It's just like, yeah, I'm of course experiencing a sense of discomfort connected with Naruyuki's absence, and I suppose that's a kind of sadness. Like it's almost like you expect a speaking spell to like say this, like that kind of voice. But she's like, hey, I know that he did this for his own sake, and it wasn't easy for him, so I'm really glad about it. And I think the saddest thing would be for him to give up on his dreams. And everyone's like, aw, you're so petite yet so grown up. She's like, fuck you.
Not small.
They're like, we're just gonna have to get over the fact that we're never gonna see Uega again. And
Hi
like,
guys, I'm here.
He's like, I was just a little late getting here today. I got all your work. And they're like, but what are you doing? Like, you have to put so much work into what you're doing. You can't possibly still do this. And he's like, I mean, of course I can. And he shows his grades, and they're all like 94s and above. And he's like, not to brag, but like, teaching you guys has helped me get a greater knowledge on all the stuff that I'm supposed to do, and I've scored really well because of it. So I'm going to keep tutoring you guys if you'll take me, because it helps me out too. And everyone's like, yay! And they're thanking him and they're kneeling and shit. And then, of course, the end of the chapter ends with Ogata being like, oh, I still have this towel back. And then she's sniffing it at the end. Maybe it smells like, I don't know, like a fucking like a rugged mountain or some shit like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what Yuga Sao smells like.
I'm trying to think like what it smells like, and they're like, I don't know. This is fucking fascinating. So we got the official confirmation then that Uega is studying to become a teacher. Some explanations, some stuff. It's some cool little sweet moments there. I'm glad that we had a little speech from Uega and the one from Ogata. They're very, very nice moments, and it's just funny reactions.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like something important has happened, but enough of the status quo is still maintained. So now Uega is doing something for himself, and that's nice. That he's not just aimlessly heading towards something that he is only vaguely wants because he just needs to get a VIP recommendation. Now it's like, all right, good. He set his heart on something, and finally that thing that was being hinted at back during the parent-teacher conferences has been resolved, and good for him. All right, let's move on to Dr. Stone. It is chapter Z equals... I've lost my notes. Z equals 92. Desire is noble. Greed is good. So, last time, Senku and Ryusui had concluded that they definitely needed to recruit a professional chef. Otherwise, they would never have, they would never be able to make bread that they would be able to stand for their long journey. So Ryusui immediately seeks out the reporter lady, and they call up to where she is in the village with Gen and company, and is like, "Yeah, I know that you've got enough of the revival fluid. You've got to have at least have a single dose. Like I'm sure that you like hid some away for your own personal use." So she's not giving anything up. So Gen thinks for a bit, and he grabs the cell phone receiver. He's like, "Oh wow, you created something so amazing, Senko! I can't believe that. Oh wow, that would be a great present for our star reporter, Minami Hokutuzai." We finally get a name for her, which, according to Ryusui, the characters in her name, the kanji spells out north, east, west, south, which spells news. Okay. And so, without even knowing what this is, Gen just fucking bluffs her into things. I want something! And she just decides to give up her revival fluid that she's got. Like, I guess she was keeping it hidden in her horn things that she wears on her head. It's hard to tell exactly where she pulls the vial out from. It almost looks like she had it in her hair. Anyway, so they're going to revive someone that Ryusui has handpicked, which is his butler, Francois, that he had first referenced back when they first revived him. And so he directs them where to find Francois, and they go seek them out. And Taiju is like, "Oh, it's not a guy; it's a lady. I'm going to just go over here until they're fully clothed." And Yuzuri is like, "Actually, I can't tell if it's a guy or a girl. It's like they're naked. That's amazing. You can't tell that." And basically through the entire rest of the chapter, it's Francois is like they don't know what their gender is. Like, okay, fine. But they immediately, as soon as they revive, grab the clothes the Yuzuri has brought and dress with a flourish. And Francois says, do you know who Ryusui Nanami is? I must search him out at once. It's like, well, don't you have questions for us? You've been asleep for thousands of years. No, I have no. I'm not worried about that. I have to get back to work. And sets off immediately. And just walks for 2 days straight in order to reach where Senku and company are.
The best, like the notion of fucking Gen showing up, being like, "Oh God, 2 days and it didn't stop. Why?"
And Kuhak is like, "Doesn't Francois want an explanation what's going on?" And Ryusu's like, "No, Francois is so efficient at their job that they probably know all the details already." And I like the conversations that they have while waiting for Francois to show up, because Ukio's like, "Isn't Francois a French name? Are they French? Are they Japanese?" And he's like, "I don't know. Also, I don't know their name, and I don't know if their gender is." This person has known you for years, presumably. You don't know this.
They're like, "It's your butler."
How do you not know this? I don't know.
I mean, come on. What are you supposed to memorize everybody?
Look, I just know that they're good at their job. Who cares? And Francois is like, "Show me the bread that you had to eat." And they show them the fucking charred bread. And I love this reaction panel that Francois has, because it's their face with like a horrified, frozen expression. And then in the background, there's this weird sketchy pattern of everyone. Like they're the only person who exists in the world, and just them and their horror. And as Francois puts it, "I must ask if you dare to serve this industrial waste product to those desiring something edible." So they give the requirements for the food that they need, something long lasting for a voyage. And Francois is like, "Exactly how long must the bread last?" And immediately Senku perks up, because like, "Oh wow, if you're asking for that level of detail," and okay. And Ryusui says that they need something that will last for 10 months, because if it goes beyond that point, then we're gonna go crazy anyway. So Francois gets ready to prepare Goat's Gift Stollen, which essentially is like a fruitcake. And so they go and milk a goat and make butter from their milk, get some very heavily preserved fruits, and get them all together. Senku and Ryusui try to help, and Francois is like, "No, stop. Not doing it right.
Fuck off."
But Senku does create a proper oven to regulate the temperature, and Francois is like, "Oh, very good. Yes. I aim for exemplary service, and this will allow me to do that. It is my duty to fulfill a guest's every last desire, because desire is noble." And they're able to bear it with this super awesome oven that Senku has cooked up. And while they're waiting for the bread to bake, Francois mentions to Ryusui, "As your butler, I have every intention of reviving Nanami Corporation. And if your conglomeration is to dominate in this new world, that man, Senku Ishigami, I desire him." And Ryusui's like, "Yeah, duh."
He's pretty dope.
And they make this awesome cake, which just blows everyone away. And bread has been acquired. That's the end of the chapter.
I like this chapter a lot. I like Francois is such a cool character to kind of come out of this, and it's weird because we're getting a metric crap ton of characters recently between a news reporter and Ryusui and now Francois. But everybody like kind of fits in. We still get like a good mix of the different characters. I mean, there's still like Ukyo and I can't remember her name. The
Nikki.
Nikki, who are still like they come up relatively frequently. I mean, Ukyo's in most chapters. So it's interesting to see this many characters come out, but I liked Francois' design. I just like the aesthetic, like the notion of like Francois walked 2 fucking days. Just fucking stop.
Getting kept up with him. I think that, I mean, it's stuff like this that as the cast is building and building and building up that reminds you that Inagiki's just really good at balancing a very wide cast. It's like, hey, what character would be good for this reaction? This one. Yeah. And they've all got such distinct personalities from each other because they're all such weird, bigger than life personalities and so bizarre in different ways. I think that it's important to have characters like Ukyo and Yuzuriha so that there are, normal people included in all these weirdos. So,
yeah.
All right. Really fun chapter. Let's move on to Seven Deadly Sins.
So, as a heads up, I don't know if Crunchyroll messed up or if this actually is the end of the chapter, but this chapter has no ending per se.
They're just fighting, and then the chapter ends.
It's in the middle of like one of those Dragon Ball like punchy like fucking back and forth things. But anyway, we're gonna just try to give it.
Imagine if the narration for the end of the chapter came, and instead of that, like someone standing at the top of a smoking heap. So, but is this really the end of the battle? Find out next time. Instead of just like, how will this clash end? Is there...
yeah, you're like next time, Dragon Ball Z. Like, wait, what? This is chapter 298, Male versus Zeldris. So last time Male showed up. He's got the Sun Seraph or whatever they call it, and he's like, "Cool, I'm gonna fight you, brother." And Ludershill's like, "Thank God you're alive." And he's like, "Yeah, you shouldn't have come." And he's like, "Well, I feel partly responsible for the start of the Holy War, but I'm certainly not here to fight." He says, "If you turn a blind eye to our stopping Melodius' transformation into the Demon Lord and promise to withdraw your demon army for Britannia, I promise not to interfere with you." And yeah, it's not gonna work.
Nope.
The first demon's like, "Get out of here!" So he charges at him, and Male throws the sunshine and causes like a small but humongous explosion. Like basically, it's tough to like get the scale size because the first demon is massive, and this fucking like fireball is dwarfing him in comparison. So it's pretty crazy. But they're like, "Wow, it's really strong," and he's like, "Oh, so I guess that's your answer to all of this." So he tries to Zeldris like basically, "All right, so I guess that you must realize that even the strongest attack can't work against me." He's like, "Yep, I did." So he's like, "Okay, so I'm just gonna try to kill your friends." So he does his big slash, and it's blocked by Ludishell, but the attack basically gains life itself and kind of starts turning into these like tendril monsters that start going after everybody. But before they get hit, Diana and King and Gauther and Elizabeth, everybody shows up and they protect them. And Elizabeth's like, "How much longer, Merlin, till your time freeze magic goes in?" They're like, 5 minutes. So it's very significant. Zeldris activates his ominous nebula thing, so it's sucking everybody in. Male's like, "No," and he melts the sword. And they're like, "Wait, what happened?"
Zeldris like goes, and like is gonna carve him apart, and there's like, oh.
Oh. Can't do that. And they explain that the explosive power of sunshine doesn't only cover the surface of the body, it's coursing within as well. So basically his nebula power isn't really going to work. And Male states it quite bluntly. He's like, "If I can keep you down for just 5 minutes, I win. And if you could beat me within the next 5 minutes, you win." So that's the fight that's happening. They start punching each other. Chapter ends. apparently.
Well, we're done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's not more context than that, unfortunately. Like the chapter literally ends with Male punching Zeldris, and like not like a full page panel, like what a big move kind of way. It's just in the middle of like a martial arts exchange.
Yeah. I mean, Crunchyroll has been known to screw up some weird stuff every now and then, so it could just very well be some sort of an issue on their side of this. So
It could be. It could just be that is how the chapter ends. It wouldn't be unthinkable for that to be
yeah,
the case. It seems unlikely.
we have some weird chapters this week because we had a lot of chapters that were just very action heavy. Fighting is happening, and then we just had some chapters that was like, and now a fight's gonna happen, and that's just basically it. And this is one of them. It's like they started fighting. Okay, that's it, and we're gonna have to wait until next week to get probably for things to actually ramp up and become really intense. So, but yeah, let's move on ahead to the Promised Neverland, chapter 121. Isn't this great? And that's basically how that sums it up pretty properly, which is, last time everyone was kind of, reacting facially to Norman's ideas. Like, we're just going to kill all the demons in order to, build a home here. And Emma seems like she's going to say something to this because she's like, and then everyone's like, yeah!
Kill them! Kill them! Kill them!
We're making wise decisions today. It was like, wow, this is amazing. And the more that people talk, the more that Emma's just like, yeah, okay.
All right, yeah, I guess I can see this.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, not just like the really little kids, but also people like, Nigel and fucking the other ones. I don't know. Nigel, Giselle, the others.
Yeah, you got all the important ones.
Yeah.
Don't forget Anna.
Yeah. Well, Anna wasn't apparently there. I got her confused with some other blonde girl whose face looks like hers. Anyway,
but
she
Nick,
was
she's such a distinct character. How could you forget her?
Yeah, how could I forget her? She would always do something unique, different from all these other characters.
Every scene is a very iconic scene of her.
Yeah. So, the kids are bringing up to Emma. It's like, this is great. We can make a world where children won't be food. Dawn is happy. Guild is happy. Ray brings up, he's not as enthusiastic as everyone's like, I mean, if we had a strategy to get rid of the demons, yeah, I mean, like, we wouldn't have to worry about the problems and the obstacles that would get in the way of us going for the Seven Walls plan. So that could be ideal. And Emma's kind of shocked by how everyone is going through with all this. Gilda says that she's actually happy to hear this because now Emma's not going to have to carry this huge burden in doing this. And I was like, yeah, isn't this great, Emma? You don't have to worry about this. And now we can do this and just, kill a bunch of demons.
It's just pretty easy now. And we get right down to it.
So the more that she hears this, the more that she's kind of like, yeah, okay. But you can tell that like Ray thinks that like she's putting on a bit of a show by the way that he looks at her. So
yeah.
Norman's like, all right, with that settled, and with not having to discuss this any further ever again, he descends down the steps and leads everyone into the main facility, and a whole bunch of people are reacting like, oh my God, it's Mr. Minerva. He's coming down from his office. And Norman's like, yeah, normally I'm, just cooped up in my room, so it is kind of a shock, I guess, for these people to see me. But leads people into a big house with a whole bunch of clean beds, and everyone's super happy to have, a nice place to stay. There's like proper plumbing and a kitchen and stuff. There's a bit of awkwardness from some of the younger kids because they're like, what are we supposed to, like call you? Because everyone around here is calling you, boss and Mr. Minerva and stuff. And what should we do? And Norman does have this really sweet moment where he says, I mean, I guess if we're around other people, they might be more comfortable if you called me boss, but that's because, to them, I'm boss, and to Hayato and the others, I'm William Minerva. But guys, I'm Norman. You don't have to call me anything different. I'm still the same guy. And I do love the moment that, as soon as like Hayato leads a bunch of kids, including Anna, in, he sees his great leader being bombarded with children who sees like a statue collapsing under their weight. And And there's a bit of a freak out from there. And Dawn observes, like, you're still pretty physically weak, despite being taller now. So, everyone has a big meal together. Um, Big celebration happens, and everyone's happy. And Emma feels a lot better as a result, because she gets to spend time together with her family. And eventually, it's just down to the main three, Emma, Norman, and Ray, as the night is rolling around. And she looks at him and says, I'm glad because you haven't really changed. You're still you, and you're alive, and you're next to me. Anyway, let's play chess.
All right, later.
I have a score to settle with you assholes. You're gonna get all 100,000 of my losses back. And eventually, like Giselle and someone else, maybe Gilda, I don't know. They poke their heads into the room and see that the three friends had passed out together, leaning against each other. So,
what a sweet moment. I guess it's kind of significant for us to get this chapter here after last chapter to have this, because you're meant to kind of have mixed feelings as you read this chapter, where you're like, it's really sweet to see them together, but that there's definitely something coming. It's not overly kind of stated in this chapter, which I guess could be to a detriment to some people, because maybe you're like, it's weird that Emma was super like weird about it, and then she's kind of like super happy the rest of the chapter. But
no,
again,
it's not. Honestly, like she's hiding her true feelings because this is a thing that she wants to believe in this, and the assurances of her family are making her lose sight of what she knows is the truth. And keep in mind, guys, these are still kids. Like, Emma's 15 or 14 possibly. So even though they're book smart, they still have a lot of immaturity to them. So
yeah. So I dig it. I do think that it's a pretty cool sort of moment to have that, knowing full well that there's some bad shit coming right up on the horizon, basically.
And how bad would it feel too if they reunite with Norman after so long and there are no good times between, it's like, I see you now, Norman, and now we are enemies. Like,
it's an unfortunate thing if that's the case. All right, so let's talk about Black Clover, page 191, storming the Shadow Palace. So that big group of characters have stormed the Shadow Palace.
Yes.
And in maybe one of my favorite shonen tropes of all time, as they enter the big demon group, they're like, we're being separated from one another. Oh no! And Asta lands. He's like, ow, that hurt. And then Mimosa lands boob first into his face.
My boobs are about 3 times as large as they normally are drawn in this one panel.
This may be the most gratuitous fan service in Black Clover to this point. And note, there's a character who walks around in her underwear all the time. This felt egregious at this point. But yeah, her boobs crushed Asta, and she's like, I'll have to heal you. So like, okay, yeah, we all got separated, but we're inside this thing. So, we're going to try to do this. And they see that it's, what's the name of this design?
It reminds me of I don't know if I know.
I forget the name of this thing. Anyway, they're in that thing that, it was a Digimon Frontier too. That's the necessary context everyone needs. Is it the Sephiroth? I thought there was another name for it. So they're inside the Sephiroth. They're basically, each orb is its own room. And there's this powerful elf presence in all of them. And at the very top is where the most powerful presence seems to be. So presumably that's where Patry is. So they're like, all right, well, we're going to have to, meet up there by going through the different containers. We'll meet up at the end, basically. So they're like, well, what are we going to have to do now? We'll just have to beat our first foe on my own. Just me and Mimosa. And who should it be? But Rill, Nick. Well, it's not Rill. It's Lyra in Rill's body. And Lyra is like, yeah, his body took a little getting used to, and picture magic's fun, but fuck, I'm much cooler than him. And I make all sorts of shit that he didn't ever make. And he's like, we'll draw a whole new world on a pure white canvas once we've erased you humans from it. and there's a whole bunch of different effects going on. It's like, whoa, and it's like, I guess this won't be easy, huh? And I'm like, I feel like it could be because you can counter everything your sword hits. But hey, who knows? We might make a fight out of this yet. Noelle laments the fact that she's alone. She's like, why is that? That's stupid bullshit. But then Fauna, but not Fauna. I forget what her like actual name was. The elf that took over Fauna is like, I'll play with you. So they're gonna fight. And then Veto, which is the other guy whose name I was trying to remember a couple weeks ago, is like, you're an opponent, and it's Mary Leona, and yay, very exciting. And then they save the last matchup for the one I guess you would be most stunned is happening. You're like, holy shit, I can't wait to see the result of this fight between Fuego Leon and the elf who took over the new Purple Orcas captain, who we don't know yet.
Yeah, I didn't even know that happened, so great.
It's just such an interesting, like, you have three matchups with
Asta versus Real.
Like three established, like every fight, everyone in it is an established character. And then at the end, it's like Fuego Leon versus the new Purple Orchid. You're just like, ooh.
Pair of the extras, you know how it goes. Chris, come on.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just tropes. That's a chapter. You know what? I do like this chapter though, because it is the kind of simplistic, trope-tastic shonen battle manga stuff that I can't help but love. There's a part of me to my core that always loves the heroes invade a big villain group and have to separate, and they all end up in different rooms where one-on-one fights have to occur. It's such a convoluted way to get like one-on-one individual fights, but it's you know, when it's done effectively, I'm still like, fuck yeah, this is cool. So I mean, I can't say there's any of these fights that I'm particularly looking forward to, but I guess just the execution was still pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, this chapter is like fine on its own, but it's really just a setup chapter. And I'm sure that if you know, are into these characters, that you're probably really anticipating the fights that are going to unfold. And I don't really have anything against it. It's just like kind of there. It's like some fights are going to happen. That's the point of the chapter. All right. Let's move on to chapter 931 of One Piece, Soba Mask. Oh, man. So last time, when confronted with page one, Sanji concluded that he needed to do something to prevent people from finding out who he was. So he took out the Germa gear, and in this chapter he explains himself and says that, you know what, sometimes it's important to just put aside your pride for the sake of actually getting an advantage. It's kind of pointless for me to deny using it. And hey, just because I'm using this device does not mean that I'm a German. I'm just going to, test it out for now. And we get his transformation sequence, which Frankie completely freaks out when he sees, big dork that he is. And he looks awesome. He's got this very ninja getup. His hair is kind of swooped upward. And turns out Law is an otaku, Chris. This fucking nerd. Law's like, I recognize that. It's the number 3 member of the Army of Evil, Germa 66, Stealth Black. And like, why the fuck do you know? Like, well, they were the villains in this comic strip that I read. Like, he knows all this stuff about all the characters. Like, come on, dude. So Sanji decides that he needs to introduce himself by a pseudonym, so he refers to himself as Soba Mask. And all the freaking his allies in the peanut gallery are like, that's an awful name. Choose a different one, please. Let us pick your name.
Which is a shame. Sanji's usually so good at coming up with his cover nicknames. We're getting a cut internet hiccup from Nick, guys.
There was a bit of a hiccup there. Yes. Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Now we can hear you.
All right. So Sanji launches himself forward, kicks page one really hard in the gut, and nobody could actually see where the attack went, because as soon as Sanji launches himself forward, he seems to vanish from view. And Frankie's like, "Oh my God, he's moving so fast we can't see." And Law says, "No, no, no. You have to understand. In the comic strip Sora, Warrior of the Sea, the enemy in the story was an evil army, Germa 66, and the German member named Stealth Black was particularly tough to fight because he could vanish." We see that in the follow through of his attack, Sanji is just standing on the ground, but he is hidden from view. He's invisible, and Law explains he would project the background over his body so that he couldn't be seen against it. And Usopp's like, "Why do you know all this?"
You're a fucking nerd.
And Sanji realizes, wait a minute, I've just vanished from view? And he remembers researching the clear fruit, which could turn you invisible, and confronting fucking Absalom and being really upset with him that he had eaten the clear fruit. And so he's like, the dream I thought was dead has come true with the power of I hated Germa's science. What twisted irony, but this power will indeed be useful for the women's bath. I mean, helping my friends. Oh my God, this is amazing. The dream he thought had died lives on, Chris.
You know, it's actually somewhat of a touchy moment. I know that like Sanji uses the whole like I wanted the invisible fruit to see like to peek into women's baths. And that's still what he kind of intends to do here. He very quickly is like, I could use it for women's bath. I mean to save people or like to fight, whatever. But it is, I don't know why, it's one of those things that Oda does very well where he takes a detail from long ago and kind of like pays it off later on. So the idea that Sanji gets this device from his family and he's like, I don't want to use it. I don't want to be like you guys. You know, it has this whole deal. And then he kind of gets this moment where he's like, I'm going to use it. And it ends up having, very unintentionally, it's like his parents intentionally put it in.
Oh yeah, this way Sanji will be able to pee in the women's bath, obviously.
Yeah. But this idea that they did it and it ends up having this effect on, like, you know, it fulfills a childhood dream of his. It's like a very sweet thing. Like, even though it you know, again, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Or it's not that it doesn't make a ton of sense. It you know, hits upon one of Sanji's less admirable sort of traits. But,
well, just the fact that it's brought up this whole thing from like that we learned about him like 10 years ago and pays off on that. It's just a very satisfying moment.
Yeah, I dig it. Like, I want to stress, I really like it. It's not that it's necessarily like sweet. It's just like a cool way to like live back up to that.
So, page 1 goes into his halfway form. He looks way less cool now. And especially because he's got page 1 tattooed across his chest. It's like, were you like you had to just like be standing very still in order to have them. So like, it's like they stamped it on this guy. Like, come on, dude. So, they clash again, and Sanji counters the swipe that page 1 launches at him, but still gets the worst of it, goes crashing into a building. And they're like, oh shit. But Sanji is basically fine. The braid suit protected him fully. And so he's like, all right, well, I'm good now. Now I basically have, I think he's and so yeah, anyway, Usopp and Frankie and Law run off because they have to, leave him. But Sanji just uses his stealth ability to attack page 1 again, and they're good to go. He also mentions that, like, I'm going to have to get my 2 nerdy friends to change the design of this thing for me so I can actually use it properly. So
I do like that's a little tease to the future as well, that Sanji's things could get updated.
Yeah, he's not going to just look like a Germa 66 member. He's going to have his own specially designed suit for looking in the women's bath. I mean, helping his friends.
Yeah.
We cut over to Orochi's castle, where Robin is sneaking around, and she's like, maybe there is a hidden door somewhere where I can find there must be a poneglyph stone somewhere, and ninjas ambush her. It's like a dozen of them have all caught her in the act.
She's like, when did they get here? I was like, I don't know, all 9 of them?
Oh my god. And the captain of the ninja forces, who has this gigantic goddamn forehead, it says, Curiosity can be deadly, geisha. Let's hear your excuse. And you only get one.
It was my
And
first
Robin's like,
day.
it's pretty easy, honestly. He's like, I had no idea where I was going. I've never been here before.
Is this not the bathroom? I pooped in several of these file cabinets.
You can't prove I didn't. And lastly, we cut over to where Chopper and Momonosuke and Otama and the tall woman are. I forget her name already.
Okiku?
I think that is it.
How the fuck do I remember that?
I don't know, man. You're the One Piece name guy. Yeah.
I don't know how it is.
They're basically just talking about random stuff. Otama says that she's worried about Luffy, and everyone's like, it'll be fine. Although Momonosuke says, like, I guess it is, we haven't heard from Aizo in a while. But then they happen to point out, like, hey, there's someone over on the beach there. And oh, fuck, Big Mom washed ashore. And Chopper's freaking out over this. And he's like, we've got to get the fuck out of here. We've got to go. We've got to leave before she wakes up. She's just as dangerous as Kaido is. We've got to go. But before they can get away, Big Mom wakes up. She looks around and she goes, "Where am I? Who am I?" Yeah, we're doing this.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Like the amnesia thing is usually like a kind of eye roll twist to a story, and like I'm kind of sitting here. I'm like, I feel like there's not really a necessity for another crazy element to get added into this Wano fight. But who knows? Oda could still execute it really well, and it could be super satisfying.
We'll see.
We'll find out.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to finish then on our 2 chapters of World Trigger. So.
Feel refueled?
It's, a lot happens, okay? So it's chapter 174, Azuma Squad Part 2 to start off with. So Hughes basically goes like, all right, we've got to get 3 more points in order to get ranked second. Let's go fuck that up, basically, is what happens to keep it very short there. But we see that their method of trying to secure the final 2 points by taking out Korai and Azuma is for them to very carefully go through the entire mall using Escudo from Hughes to cut off all escape paths and slowly shut them in. And Chica is watching the outside so they can't just drive their way out of the mall too. And whenever Azuma Squad reacts, Yuma will be there in order to take them out. So Azuma checks in with his 2 attacker squad mates and says, all right, guys, what do you think we should do next? And Okudera says, we should, retreat. The only thing that we have, that's the only option that we have. We better just like cut our losses. And Azuma says, okay, what do you think, Korai? And Korai's like, I really, really don't want to, but I've lost a leg. It's just 2 of us. Kuga's sneaking around. I don't like my chances against him, so I think that we should retreat too. And Azuma's like, okay, well then. He tells their operator, he told me, give me control of several of the beacons, especially the ones on the outside. And he uses this to make it appear as though their signals are gradually approaching Chica's location. And so Osamu immediately, I almost called him Yuiga. Osamu immediately gets worried by this.
It's basically the same.
Yeah. Osamu immediately gets worried by this because, like, what should I do? I mean, what if they're actually approaching Chica's location? Well, maybe they're just using this to rattle us. Maybe I could have Chica destroy the dummies. Maybe I could. And then immediately Hughes just comes in and is like, they're just trying to trick us. It's just ignore it. Just keep doing what we're doing. And Osamu's like, I know, but he could be trying to do something. Maybe he's trying to double bluff us, and it's a bluff to make us think it's not a bluff. It's the bluff. And Hughes just like, look, just do the plan. It's transparent. It's proof that we have them dead to rights. And so I was like, he's probably right, but what if they get Chica? All right, Guys, fall back to Chica's position. You back her up. Do it. And he was just like, no, I'm not doing that. No, that's sloppy. I am not going to do this. Look, you remember what happened before? Azuma can shoot down projectiles. The only reason that he didn't do that before when she attacked the building is because he was inside of it. He's free and clear. He could shoot down anything else that she shoots down. He's read you like a book and lured you into assuming the unlikeliest option. I am not going to follow illogical orders. And Osama was like, oh, I know he's probably right. But what should I do? I mean, Jin told me not to waver, and what does not wavering mean in this? And so Yuma basically is just like, we're compromising. I'll go guard Chica. You keep doing what you're doing. Chica and Hughes can keep following the plan, but I'll protect her. And Hughes is like, all right, fine. Conversation's over. I'm going ahead. And Yuma privately speaks with Osamu as they continue with this, saying that, look, give him a chance here because he actually blames himself for the bad stuff that's happened thus far. The fact that Kageura got away from us before we could score the point. The fact that Yuzuru took you down. He blames himself. He's hoping to take back a point or two. That's just how serious he is about all of this. And I'm growing to really appreciate the dynamic that Hughes has with the rest of the team, where it's like their goals are very aligned and he wants to do the best for the team, which means being an asshole. It's, not betraying who he is at the core, basically. He's not going to just get along with everyone. He's going to just like, no, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do it to help you. So, and Hughes pretty quickly finds Korai and spots that his leg is damaged and he's having trouble getting away. So he starts to launch some meteors, and all of a sudden, from out of the shadows, Azuma appears. Next chapter. 175, Hughes, part 7. A bagworm flutters from the corner, and Hughes is like, just as expected! And he launches a bunch of his meteor at it, and he blows up a bagworm with nothing inside of it. And Azuma shoots him from the opposite direction and blows him the fuck up. It's pretty crazy, honestly, seeing him just like, well, he's been cut in half by this fucking sniper bullet.
It's pretty crazy. Like, Azuma is like, there's a lot of characters who are treated like they are like crazy super badasses, like Kageura and Ko, basically like all the big name attackers, and then you still have people like Ninomiya and like Nasu. But Azuma maybe low-key like the most badass character in all of World Trigger, because this dude always pulls out some awesome shit in everything he's in.
Yeah, shooting through the wall to take out Osamu, and the last time they came across Tamakoma, to this bit where he, shows that Hughes is not invincible and can be fooled. Hughes is able to respond with basically the remainder of his volley of meteor, but he only takes out Azuma's leg. He can't get a point off of it, and he's forced to bail out. So it's down to a 2-on-2. And they're like, okay, well, what do we do now? And so immediately Hughes is just like, have Chica blow everything up.
Burn it down.
But there's a logic behind it, which is just like both of the remainders have damaged legs. So there's no way that they can actually maneuver in order to intercept her shot. So just blow everything up. That's going to force them to retreat. And sure enough, she launches her meteor and blows up basically the rest of them all, and they bail out and retreat. And as a result of that, it's just down to Tamakoma 2 remaining, and so they easily win the match. It's 6-2 to 2-1 at the end of the day, with Tamakoma having 2 survivors at the end of everything. And then we get words from the commentators, Arashiyama and Inukai. That was his name. I wrote things down, so I would be prepared.
You.
Yay!
You didn't remember Kiku.
Okay. No, I didn't. No.
That's why
she's barely in the chapter.
That's why I'm here. Can't cut me out yet, Nick.
We do get a little bit of some analysis basically saying like, okay, it seems as though Azuma rigged a lightning on the upper floor with a bagworm hanging off of it, so then it fluttered basically, and that drew Hughes' attention. And then while he was distracted by the bagworm, Azuma shot at him. Yeah, and it's a clever thing because he's like, in order to get it to work, he put his sniper rifle down and then switched out to his other sniper rifle. So then the thing that the bagworm was hanging from disappeared and it fell, and the movement drew his attention. It's like, oh, very clever. What it comes down to is that everyone did a good job, basically, except Kageura. And Inukai is like, it's actually really weird. Like, he's like, he was not impressive. Like Ko was really good. Suzunari had some interesting stuff, and they also had the strategy with Taichi, although it kind of cut off pretty quickly. Yuma was a really good support for Hughes during the match. It was something that was definitely kind of like underplayed in the moment, but of course, like if you were watching the battle unfold, it's like, yeah, he was kind of all over the place, really helping set him up. And then, yeah, finally, Inukai just says, like, Kage was not doing so good. He's usually way more in control with that can't touch me attitude, but this time he felt really cautious and passive. And then when he scrambled away at the end, it didn't feel like him. And everyone in Kageura's squad's like, I don't know, yeah. To which Zoe says, well, I guess he's more stressed out than usual because your participation in the away mission is riding on this Yuzuru. And Yuzuru is like, oh, so he's acting this way for my sake. Oh. And Kageura's like, we're going to fucking win, basically. Because things have definitely gone in Tamakoma's favor, but they haven't taken a lead over Kageura yet. They're actually slightly behind because even though their scores are tied, Kageura was ranked higher at the beginning of the rank wars, and so they're still got the tiebreaker. And finally, we get Hughes explaining to Osamu that the reason why he didn't use Hound before is because he was basically growing increasingly sure that they weren't going to be able to take a commanding lead in this match, which meant that things would be very much decided in the final round. So he needed to hold on to some of his best moves, and that's basically it. And Osamu realizes like he really is serious about actually, doing this properly. He still kind of was a dick to you, though, dude. Like
kind of a super asshole, yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the end of the rank war. And we finally, and lastly, we catch up with Ninomiya squad being a couple of douchebags while hanging around with Kohei. And that's basically it. It's very, very heavily implying that Ninomiya squad is going to be the last hurdle for Tamakomatsu to overcome in order to get onto this away mission.
Yeah. What do you think is the last matchup that Tamakoma has?
I feel as though, it's going to be Ninomiya squad. Mm-hmm. It might honestly be Kageura again in there, given the way things leave off with the conversation between Yuzuru and Kageura in this one.
I could see it being definitely Ninomiya. That's kind of what they're setting up, and that would be very appropriate. I feel like a Coma squad's going to be in there because they've been kind of raising up too, and I feel like Akoma looked like such a goober in the last one that they constantly like had him saying like, usually I'm better than this, like I didn't get to do my super cool move and stuff like that. So I feel like it would be a chance to like put them in there too, and maybe Kageura has its side because there's definitely something interesting going on where all three of these teams want to be in there. Only two can get in there, but they don't necessarily have to be in the same match. And the idea is they try to mix up who fights each other so that way they don't get the same matches over and over, and there's more like variation. So I feel like it would be fitting for it to be like the next highest ranked team they weren't just involved in a match with would be like a Coma squad.
Right. Okay.
We'll see. I like the chapters. It's like I'm surprised actually how well the match went for Osamu, because there was such like a buildup of like, why do I have such an uneasy feeling about this? And I'm like, maybe we'll find out what that is down the line. But it didn't really feel like anything went that poorly for them. Like
It didn't go perfectly. I mean,
no,
but
but like
they
no.
didn't get I guess they didn't get everything that they wanted out of it. Like if things had gone perfectly, then they would have a commanding lead and they would be basically all set to just cruise into the away mission.
Mm.
But like Osamu got taken out. Uh, he wavered at the end, and Hughes got taken out partially because of that. But I don't know.
I think there's a level two because like nobody actually really shits on Osamu for losing this time. Like
No,
usually that's
no.
like a fucking like end of rank wars like conversation. Like let's talk about Osamu didn't get shit done. But
He
there's
really
not
needs
really.
to improve himself, and he's not going to hold back his teammates. I mean, well, this time he basically, just like while he was in the match, he properly helped them out. He was in the right position at the right times. So
Yeah. So it's very well that maybe we're waiting for like whatever that feeling is going to manifest as being something else down the line. But it was strange to me that like watching it and having that foreshadow happening, being like nothing really bad happened for them. Like they won a commanding lead in this match. Like it could have
yeah.
been more, but I mean they got a fucking huge jump up in the rankings because of it.
hmm They jumped up, what, 3 spots, I think? Maybe even, it might have just been 1 spot, actually, because they got like 6. So,
It very well could be, but I think they went up like at least one.
okay.
But yeah, like they gained, like there was like a net gain of 4 points for them over everybody else in the match.
hmm
So
All right. Well, that's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week, guys. So, we're going to name our favorites, favorite series and MVP. Chris?
So my favorite series this week, I'm going to give to Lation. I think this was a really cool chapter. I like the way it's setting up some pretty cool stuff going forward. Like we have this villain group, we have all this new direction. It feels like this was a chapter that really went to firmly establish what Lation is going to be like in the future. So I really dug it and super enjoyable chapter.
Totally in agreement. It took me off guard the fact that we're just getting this villainous group introduced, but I'm really digging it, and I love just how immediately super evil they are. They're just like, we're not going to let the police catch you.
I promise the police will never find you.
Well, most of you. They'll find part of your DNA. For my MVP, I'm going to give it to Francois and Dr. Stone. Made an immediately good first impression, and honestly, just like a lot of the gags that were associated with them. And feel like we got a really strong feel for who they are as a character. So
that was your series and MVP?
Neolation is my favorite series.
Oh, okay.
Francois from Dr. Stone is my MVP.
All right, I'm mimicking that as well. Francois was my MVP as well. I love the design. I love the character. It's very cool.
All right.
Nick's got good opinions every so often. And by the way, the audience pick on it was World Trigger was the chapter of the week, and Sanji won MVP. So, bravo. I totally get it, too. Sanji was definitely a contender, and, I mean, people are going to like World Trigger no matter what it is.
Well, I mean, it was good chapters of World Trigger.
It was. I'm just saying, it's inevitable. People are going to love World Trigger. It's that kind of series.
It's great. Yeah. All right, that's going to do it, everyone, for Weekly Manga Recap. We want to thank you guys for joining us here on twitch.tv/Realty and smashcast.tv/Realty, where we stream the show live on Mondays at around 7:30 Eastern Time. If you want to check out our past episodes, you can look us up on YouTube, on iTunes, and you can also go to weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. But sometimes we need to change things up for, where we stream and post all that stuff. So be sure to follow us on social media. At WMR Podcast is the podcast's Twitter account. And you can also follow your hosts at Realty and at Nick F. Time. If you have any questions for us to answer on our Q&A episodes, if you have a suggestion for us to read in the future, if you just want to send us general feedback, you can send that stuff via email to weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. And also, of course, check out our Discord server, where there is an entire chat specifically set up for keeping track of all the recommendations and for making new ones.
Yep.
Special thanks go out to our Patreon supporters. Your support allows great, fun bonus content for you guys to enjoy. And to all the people who do special stuff for our show, like Steve Man, our tire artist, Infamous Planet, who is just, a general like support, and, Gopher, I don't know.
Gopher.
And then X3i, who's put a lot of effort into making very helpful. They do the keep track of the votes that people have made for MVP and Series of the Week and all that stuff, and for tracking the stuff that we list throughout the year. It's very helpful for us to keep track of that kind of stuff, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you're somebody, if you really like Weekly Manga Recap, it's a great way to kind of have a bit more involvement with the show, because not only are you able to like put your vote in for the audience MVP and character or chapter of the week, you're also able to like put in your suggestions for what you think should be in the year-end kind of superlative awards. And I think there's a value in doing that as chapters come out that hit you, rather than doing it at the end of the year and trying to remember which moments kind of stood out. So
Absolutely.
I think there's a big value there, and it's a lot of cool stuff. And then you can just talk fucking manga and cool shit.
Yeah, got a lot of different conversations going on in that server. All right, and that's going to do it, guys, for Weekly Manga Recap. We will see you all next week.
Yes, unless we don't.
Unless we don't.
And in which case...
Life is crazy and random. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we could all... Chaos is a ladder, as one Lord Baelish once said, Nick. And, I don't really know where I'm going with that. I just wanted to throw a Game of Thrones reference in there. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone!